Hello and good morning friends, welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, with our ongoing series on microeconomics, we would like to tell you all that we have conducted many sessions under the series, and today also we would be covering one of the important topics under the series microeconomics. In the first half, we would be talking on role of selling cost under perfect competition, monopoly and perfect competition, whereas in the second half we would be talking on excess capacity and economic efficiency under monopolistic competition. For these sessions, we have once again with us in our studios Dr. Kamlesh Gakkar. Dr. Kamlesh Gakkar is a professor in Institute of Management Studies and Research, Maharishi Dayanand University, Rohtak. Dr. Gakkar has immense knowledge, immense experience. She has contributed many years of her life in teaching, and we believe that she has given her utmost to the students. She has many books to her credits. She has written many research papers which have been published in various national and international journals. Lots of students are doing PhD under her able guidance. So let's welcome Dr. Kamlesh Gakkar and let's try to grab maximum knowledge through her. Hello ma'am, welcome to the EduSec lecture.
Thank you, Geetika. Dear viewers, today I am going to tell you about the role of selling costs under perfect competition, monopoly and imperfect competition. We have already done how the price and output is determined under monopolistic competition, and it was Chamberlain who paid special attention to the role of selling cost in deciding the price and output determination under monopolistic competition. His contention is that advertising makes changes in demand for a product, and therefore businessmen attempt most profitable adjustment of expenditure directed to this purpose. According to Chamberlain, selling costs are the costs incurred in order to alter the position or shape of the demand curve for a product. The term selling cost is broader than advertisement expenditure. Advertisement expenditure includes the costs incurred only on getting the product advertised in newspapers, magazines, on radio and television, etc. But the selling cost includes the salaries and wages given to salespersons, allowances to retailers for the display of products in their showrooms, etc., for increasing the demand for the product, along with all the advertising expenditure. So selling cost is broader than the advertisement. Selling cost is also distinguished from the production costs. According to Chamberlain, cost of production includes all those expenses which are incurred to manufacture and provide a product to the consumer to meet his given demand or want, while the selling costs are incurred to change, alter or create the demand for the product. Thus, manufacturing costs, transportation costs and the cost of handling, storing and delivering a product to the consumers are included in the cost of production. All these costs add utilities to a commodity. Therefore, the cost of production includes all expenses required to be done to provide the commodity or service, transport it to the buyer and put it into his hands ready to satisfy his wants. Selling costs include all the outlays made in order to secure a demand or market for the product. Production costs create utilities in order that given demands may be satisfied. The selling costs create and shift the demand themselves. Selling costs include advertising in its many forms, salaries of salesmen, expenses of sales departments and sales agencies, window displays and demonstration of all kinds. Production costs are made to adapt the product to the demand, and selling costs are made to adapt the demand to the product. Now we will see what is the role of selling costs under perfect competition, monopoly and imperfect competition. Under perfect competition, we know that there are a large number of firms in the market. Price is determined by the intersection of demand and supply, and all firms are price takers, and any firm can sell any amount of the commodity at the given price. So there is no need for advertisement under perfect competition. For example, if any firm advertises for its product, then influenced by it, the buyers may buy the product from other sellers who are selling the homogeneous product. So that is why the firms under perfect competition don't do any advertisement outlay. If they join together to advertise their product, it will be creating demand for the industry as a whole at the expense of some other product. So advertisement under perfect competition can only be promotional advertisement, and that is not competitive advertisement, which is done to grab or to snatch the customers from other firms. So that is not there under perfect competition. So far as monopoly is concerned, we know there is a single seller. He has no rivals, and the commodity produced has no close substitutes. Here also there is no need for advertisement to be done for creating demand for the product. So if the monopolist advertises his product, he can increase his sales, but not at the cost of others, because there are no rivals. So here also the advertisement outlay can be promotional, can be informational, and not the competitive advertising. So it is only under monopolistic competition or even oligopoly that the selling cost has a very, very important role to play. So under monopolistic competition, it is due to the product differentiation that advertisement and selling cost becomes an important competitive weapon at the disposal of one firm to increase its sales at the expense of the others. Differentiated products are close substitutes of each other. Each firm under monopolistic competition tries to convince the buyers that its product is better than those of others in the industry. By increasing the advertisement expenditure, it persuades the buyers to believe that its brand of the product is of superior quality than others. Competitive advertising actually aims at attracting the customers to their product and weaning them away from the closely related products of the rivals. According to Stonier and Haig, the fundamental aim of all competitive advertising is to attract the customer's attention and to imprint the name of a particular product on his mind. The aim is to persuade the consumer to put his hand in his pocket and buy the product in question. The main aim is to increase the sales of one firm at the expense of others and not to increase the sales of the group as a whole. Various firms involved in the production of different varieties of toothpaste or bathing soaps are incurring advertisement expenditure to increase the sales of the products of their own brand only. All of you must have experienced that whenever you are watching TV program, there are so many advertisements for various products, even in newspapers, even in magazines. So you have come across how the advertisement is so essential for the companies for increasing their demand in the days of competition. As a result of advertisement, demand curve facing an individual firm shifts to the right, indicating more sales of the product at the given price. Now we'll see what is the effect of selling cost on demand. The purpose and effect of successful advertising is to increase the demand for the product. However, selling cost or advertisement outlays are subject to varying returns. Equal increments in advertising outlay first yield increasing returns and then eventually diminishing returns in terms of its effect on demand for the product. In the beginning, increases in advertisement expenditure bring about increasing returns in raising the demand for the product. Repeated advertisement produces favorable effect on demand. While watching TV, you must have seen that advertisements are repeated time and again to influence the customers. As the advertisement expenditure is increased, the economies of large scale operations or advertising accrue to the firm. Large scale activities permit the use of specialized personnel with greater expertise and effectiveness. There may also be economies in the use of advertising media. Therefore, in the beginning, demand increases more than proportionately to the equal increases in advertising outlay. Marginal utility of a commodity declines as it is purchased under the influence of advertising. Marginal utility of the other goods rises. This makes the existing buyers of a product reluctant to buy more units of it when advertising effort by a firm is greatly increased. This also causes decreasing returns to advertisement outlay. The effect of selling cost on demand for a product and varying returns are depicted in figure 1. In this figure, we have shown output on x-axis and price is shown on y-axis. Supposing the price is already decided by the firm, that is OP, and demand is D0 is the first demand curve or the first average revenue curve when there is no advertisement being done, and the output produced and sold is OM0. Now with increasing advertisement outlay, what happens that supposing the equal increments in advertising outlay are done, and this leads the demand curve to change from D0 to D1, from D1 to D2, from D2 to D3 and to D4, and accordingly output sold increases. And what you see here in this diagram, that with the first increment in advertisement outlay, the output has increased from OM0 to OM1. In the next time, with the same increase in advertisement outlay, the demand has increased from M1 to M2, and it goes on rising till it reaches the D3 where the demand has increased to OM2. But after this, as the advertisement outlay is increased by the same amount, the demand does not rise by the same proportion. Now increase in demand is M3, M4, that is quite less than M2, M3. So advertisement will be, so this shows that there are varying returns to advertisement outlay. Now we'll see what is the concept of curve of selling cost. There are two concepts of average selling costs. A firm can choose among various amounts of the advertising outlay. So, the firm may at the outset treat the selling costs as variable amounts. With varying amounts of selling cost incurred in a period, the average selling cost or the selling cost per unit will depend upon the output sold as a result of rightward shift of demand curve brought about by a particular amount of selling cost. This average selling cost is calculated by dividing the amount of selling cost incurred by the quantity of output sold. Average selling cost will depend upon the increase in selling cost and increase in demand. Thus, with varying amounts of selling cost, average selling cost in the beginning falls due to increasing returns, reaches the minimum level and then rises due to diminishing returns. Here the curve of average selling cost, like the ordinary average production cost curve, is U-shaped, and this is shown in figure 2. Here you see that we have shown output on x-axis and average selling cost on y-axis, and ASC average selling cost curve is of U-shape, that firstly it is falling, then it becomes minimum, and after that ASC will become vertical, showing that there will be no increase in the demand or no expansion of the output with the increase in advertisement outlay. So, this ASC curve shows the per unit selling cost required for various levels of output. When advertisement outlay is considered as a fixed cost, then in that case, with increase in output sold, selling cost per unit would continue to decline like the ordinary average fixed cost. This is shown in figure 3. You know AFC goes on declining, and here ASC will also go on declining because of the selling cost being constant. So, as more and more output is sold, average selling cost goes on declining. Now, we will see what is the optimum level of advertising outlay with price and product design as constant. Now, we want to know the optimal level of advertisement outlay. Here we use the average and marginal cost curves, and we will be using the concept of average selling cost when advertising outlay is taken to be variable. ASC is superimposed on APC to get the average total cost. AC is equal to APC plus ASC. The vertical distance between AC and APC measures the average selling cost. Now, this is shown in figure 4. We have taken output on x-axis, and on y-axis we have taken price and cost. Now, price is already determined, that is OP, and this was also become as equal to MR, because here we are not going to change the price. ASC is the average selling cost, APC is the average production cost. By adding these two, we get the average cost, and we have also drawn the marginal cost. We see the equilibrium is where marginal cost cuts MR from below. So, it is the point E where the output is OM and price is OP, and at this level we know that average selling cost is MG per unit or it is BK. So, this is the optimal average selling cost which must be done when product and price are to be kept constant. Now, we will see what is the optimum level of advertisement expenditure when both price and output are variables. Now, optimal level of advertisement outlay is to be seen when price is varied. So, we have to find out the combination of advertisement outlay, price and output only the physical makeup of the product is not varied. Here we analyze the impact of a given advertising outlay on demand, output price and profits. With a given sum of advertisement outlay, average selling cost goes on declining as more output is produced. Due to this, the distance between successive average cost curves will become smaller and smaller as output is expanded. This is shown in figure 5. Here again we have shown output on x-axis and price and cost are shown on y-axis. Now we have taken AR0 is the first demand curve and APC is the average production cost when no advertisement outlay is being done. Here we have not shown MR and MC, marginal revenue and marginal cost, for the sake of simplicity. And it is assumed that MC and MC are equal at the level of output OM0 and price is OP0. So in this case you see here profits are P0HGK. Now supposing advertisement outlay of rupees 10,000 is done and this shifts the demand curve from AR0 to AR1. Average cost also increases because selling cost has been there. Now the new equilibrium level of output is OM1 and price is OP1. At this price, profits are P1J RT. They are more than what they were earlier. And next time what happens, that another 10,000 are again spent for advertisement outlay, or total advertisement outlay is 20,000, then demand curve changes to AR2 and AC changes to AC2 and the equilibrium output by MC and MR equality is OM2. Now at this price OP2, again we find that profits have increased. They are P2C NL. They have increased. But if another dose or if another increment of rupees 10,000 is done for advertisement outlay, then demand curve shifts to AR3 and AC3 is the new average cost curve. And now you see here OP3 is the price and profits are P3ZWB. They are less than the previous profits. So this shows that optimal advertisement outlay will be rupees 20,000, which has led the demand curve to shift to AR2. This way we can find out what will be the optimal advertising outlay. Now we'll see what is the effect of advertisement or selling cost on elasticity of demand. We want to see as the advertisement outlay leads to shift in the demand curve to the right, whether elasticity of demand at each price remains the same, declines or rises. The purpose of competitive advertising is to influence the buyers to buy a particular brand of the product rather than other substitutes brands of it. If the consumers start believing that a particular brand is superior to others, they consider other brands as less closely substitutes of the brand in question than they were thinking before. This greater degree of differentiation results in decline in the price elasticity of demand at each price as the demand curve shifts to the right under the influence of advertisement. Now what is the effect of selling cost on price and output? If the demand curve shifts to the right as a result of advertisement outlay and price elasticity remains the same and average cost of production falls due to expansion in output, then it will be profitable for the firm to set a lower price after advertisement. In this case, price will be lower and output larger than those before advertisement. On the other hand, if price elasticity of demand declines very much as demand curve shifts to the right as a result of advertisement, average cost rises with increase in production. In order to maximize profits after advertisement, the firm may raise the price and reduce the level of output. And if average cost does not rise sharply, then firm may raise the price as well as output level to achieve maximum profits. So, dear students, here we have seen how the selling cost brings change in the demand curve for a product, and naturally when the demand rises, the seller can charge more or he can charge the same depending upon what has been the change in the elasticity of demand. So, in case of monopolistic competition, this selling cost is of great significance. Thank you. Dear viewers, in this lecture I am going to tell you about excess capacity and under monopolistic competition and economic efficiency under monopolistic competition. Excess capacity is a very important concept that must be clear to you. So, we should firstly see what it is that. What is the ideal output and what is the excess capacity? When a firm can increase its output and reduce its per unit cost but persists in producing a smaller quantity at higher costs, it has an excess capacity. This implies that excess capacity exists in a situation wherein the firms belonging to a group or industry can increase their level of output and consequently reduce their average cost. Under perfect competition, in the long run, all firms earn only normal profits. In this case, price is equal to the average cost. In this market, price is determined by the intersection of demand and supply. All firms are price takers. They have no influence over the price. Demand curve faced by each firm is horizontal and tangent to its average cost curve at the latter's minimum point. Thus, average cost cannot be lowered by increasing production. Theories of Chamberlain's monopolistic competition and John Robinson's imperfect competition have revealed that under monopolistic competition or imperfect competition, in the long run, a firm produces less than socially optimum or ideal output. Here the firms operate at the point of falling portion of long run average cost curve. That is, they don't produce the level of output at which long run average cost is minimum. At the equilibrium point, demand curve facing a firm becomes tangential to the LAC so that it earns only normal profits. The firm can lower the cost per unit by producing up to the level of minimum of LAC, but it will not do so as its profits are maximized at the level of output smaller than at the point where long run average cost is minimum. Society's resources are fully utilized when production is done at the minimum of long run average cost. A monopolistically competitive firm produces less than the socially optimum or ideal output. To understand the concept of excess capacity, we can make use of the figures 1 and 2. In figure 1, we have shown output on x-axis and price and cost are shown on y-axis. Under perfect competition, we know that average revenue is equal to marginal revenue. Why? Because the price is determined by the intersection of demand and supply. So, this OP price is determined in the industry and any firm can sell its output at its price. So, the demand curve becomes perfectly elastic. It is a straight line parallel to x-axis and long run average cost is of U shape. Here the demand curve is tangent to it at minimum of LAC. LMC cuts a LAC at its minimum point. Now equilibrium condition is where MC is equal to MR and MC cuts MR from below. So this is the point E. So output produced is OM and it is produced at the minimum of long run average cost. So this is the minimum cost. Price is OP and average cost is ME. So price here is equal to average cost. So the firms are getting normal profits and we find that average cost cannot be reduced. Now if the output is increased, you see that LAC is rising. So cost will rise. So this is the ideal output. So OM is the ideal output and this is the optimum size of the plant. So under perfect competition, we find that the firm is of optimum size and the scale of the plant is optimum and the plant is utilized fully, maximum production is done. So there is no excess capacity under perfect competition. But in case of monopolistic competition, what happens? This is shown in diagram or figure 2. On x-axis, we have shown output. On y-axis, we are showing price and cost. Under monopolistic competition, you know, average revenue is declining, AR is falling, or demand curve is sloping downward, and MR is below it. So, we have shown AR and MR, and this is the long run average cost, and LMC is cutting LAC at its minimum point K. Now, the equilibrium is again where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue and marginal cost cuts MR from below. So, this is at point E, equilibrium is at E. From here you can find out what is the output produced. So, this output produced is OS and average revenue or price is SR, and this is also the average cost. So, average cost and price are both equal to RS. So, the firm under monopolistic competition is also getting normal profits here. But what do you see here? That here LAC is still declining. So, the equilibrium point is at the falling portion of LAC. LAC is minimum at point K. The minimum of average cost is TK, and at this output OS, this average cost is more. So, average cost can be reduced by producing the output up to OT, but the firm is producing only OS. Why? Because if it produces OT output, then you see that price will be less than the average cost. So, there will be loss to the firm, and we know that in the long run no firm would like to have losses. So, this shows that under monopolistic competition, firm is not producing at the optimum level. Optimum output is OT, but it is producing OS. So, the amount ST is the excess capacity. So, you have seen here that excess capacity is the difference between the output at which the average cost is minimum and the output which is actually done. So, the actual output is less than the optimum output. So, we get the excess capacity equal to ST. Now, you have seen that under monopolistic competition there is excess capacity. That means that they can produce more, they can reduce the cost of production per unit, but they are producing less. So, now we will see what are the reasons, why it is so, why there is excess capacity in firms under monopolistic competition. So, there are mainly three causes of emergence of excess capacity under monopolistic competition. Number one is downward sloping demand curve or average revenue curve of the firm. Now, why this average revenue curve is downward sloping? You know that under perfect competition, this AR curve was completely parallel to x-axis. This was a straight line. There was perfectly elastic demand curve, but now here it is falling. Why it is falling? Because the firm can increase its sale by reducing the price of the commodity, or if it wants to increase the price, it will have to sell less. So, the demand curve is downward sloping, and we know whenever demand curve is downward sloping, marginal revenue will always be below it. Now, when the downward sloping AR curve is there, it will be tangent to a U-shaped average cost curve only at the later's falling portion. It is only the horizontal demand curve or AR curve which can be tangent to a U-shaped average cost curve at the later's minimum point. This implies that greater the elasticity of demand curve or AR curve confronting a monopolistic competitive firm, the less is the excess capacity and vice versa. There is no excess capacity under perfect competition because demand curve facing the firm is perfectly elastic. Now, demand curve under monopolistic competition slopes downward because of the product differentiation. Product is not homogeneous. Under monopolistic competition, all the firms are producing the products which are close substitutes of each other, but they are different from each other by the way of design, packing or anything else. And because of this different varieties, every firm has some control over the price. Why? Because no doubt, supposing you take the example of toothpaste, any new firm can start the production of toothpaste, but the new firm cannot give the name which is already there in the market like Colgate, Binaka, Forhans or any name which is already there. So, name will have to be the new one. So, every producer has some patent rights over its brand and it has some monopoly power. It has certain customers who become habitual of it. Supposing I use the shampoo Pantene Pro V for my hair and I find that is best suited for my hair. So, even if the price of that shampoo rises, I go on buying the same product because I have become habitual. So, that is why the seller has some control over the price. So, that is why their average revenue curve is falling. But if the price is increased too much, then naturally persons will shift to the other products which are close substitutes of the product whose price has increased. So, because of this differentiation, their AR curve is falling. If the products were homogeneous, the demand curve would never have been downward sloping and the long run equilibrium would have been achieved at the minimum point of LAC without there being any excess capacity. So, we have seen that it is because of the falling demand curve, is because of the differentiated products that there comes the excess capacity. Another cause for the emergence of excess capacity given by Professor Chamberlain is the entry of very large number of firms in the industry in the long run. When firms are getting supernormal profits in the short run, new firms get attracted and they enter the industry in the long run. This leads to sharing of the market demand among many firms so that each firm produces a smaller output than its full or optimum capacity. You see that there are too many grocery shops, too many cloth manufacturing firms, too many automobile parts producing firms, too many bathing soaps producing firms, each operating with excess capacity. In fact, under monopolistic competition, given the same demand and cost conditions, number of firms will be larger than even under perfect competition. This is because by expanding the output to the minimum point of long run average cost, fewer firms will be required to meet the given demand for the industry's product. Now we will show this in the figure also, how the entry of a large number of firms in the long run leads to excess capacity. So this is shown in figure 3. Output is shown on x-axis, price and cost are shown on y-axis. D2 is the first demand curve, and we have taken LAC and LMC, and supposing we take that the OM2 output is being done, and we have not shown here the first MR curve for the sake of simplicity. And in this case, because demand curve is above the average cost curve, so this shows there are supernormal profits for a firm under monopolistic competition in the short run. Now what happens? That due to these supernormal profits, new firms get attracted and they enter the industry. Then naturally the demand curve faced by each firm shifts to the left. Market share of each firm comes down. Now the demand curve shifts to the left from D2 to D1. And now what do you see here? Now the equilibrium where the marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue is at E, output produced is OM1 by each firm. Here price is OP, and this is also equal to the average cost. There are only normal profits for the firm, but at the equilibrium output you see that LAC is declining. It is not the minimum here. Minimum is at B. So if there had not been entry of new firms, firm could have produced up to OM2 and it will be of optimum size. But because of the entry of new firms, demand curve has changed to D2, and now the LAC is tangent at this point, and the production which is optimum is OM2, but the actual output is OM1. So M1, M2 is the excess capacity which is the result of entry of new firms. So we have seen that this is also one of the major causes of emergence of excess capacity under monopolistic competition. The conception and measure of excess capacity is based upon a particular notion of ideal output. Marshall, Kahan, Castle and John Robinson have regarded ideal output or optimum size of the firm as that output at which its long run average cost is minimum. According to Mrs. Robinson, in a perfectly competitive industry, each firm is in full equilibrium will produce that output at which its average cost is minimum. Each firm will then be of optimum size. If the competition is imperfect, demand curve for the output of the individual firm will be falling, and the double condition of equilibrium, which is marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue and price is equal to average cost, that can only be fulfilled for some output at which average cost is falling. The firm will therefore be of less than optimum size when profits are normal. Firms will be of optimum size only if perfect competition prevails. We know that in the real world, competition is not perfect. We know that the products are not homogeneous. You have seen that there are varieties of products present in the market. There is no perfect knowledge. There is no perfect mobility. The assumptions or the features of perfect competition are not found in reality. So, perfect competition is a myth. So, when there is no perfect competition, how can we expect that the firms will be of optimum size? So, in the real world, there is imperfect competition, there is monopolistic competition, or there is oligopoly. So, that leads to excess capacity in these markets. That is, they can produce more, but they are producing less than the optimum capacity. Now, whether this excess capacity is always bad? No. Sometimes some economists say that this excess capacity is beneficial. According to some modern economists, excess capacity under monopolistic competition is desirable in some aspects. Excess capacity provides some benefits to the consumers. Excess capacity emerges because of product differentiation under monopolistic competition. Due to product differentiation, people get a wide variety of clothes, furniture, meals, etc. Consumers can choose from a large variety of goods to satisfy their wants. This increases the satisfaction or welfare of the consumers. According to these economists, social benefits of excess capacity should be weighed against the cost to society of excess capacity. We know that we get bored if we go on having the same type of commodities. That is why we want to have variety in everything. If there had been only one type of commodity, its marginal utility would have declined. This we know from the law of diminishing marginal utility. So, because of the product differentiation, people are satisfied because they have now better different varieties of each and everything in the market. Firms are trying to find something new so as to attract more and more customers. So, if we want that there should be different types of the product, different type of varieties to satisfy our wants, then naturally there will be excess capacity because every product is not liked by all the people. Some prefer one commodity, the other prefer the other variety. Monopolistic competition and economic efficiency. Now, another thing we would like to know whether this market is having the economic efficiency or not. In case of perfect competition, social welfare is maximum as maximum possible sum of consumer surplus and producers surplus is achieved. In the long run, firms operate at minimum of LAC, so there is maximum efficiency in the use of resources. Optimum scale of plant is set up and operated at its full capacity. Under monopolistic competition, in the long run, firms achieve only normal profits, but they operate with two types of economic inefficiencies. We have seen that under monopolistic competition, firms operate with excess capacity, which implies inefficiency or waste of resources, which impedes the achievement of maximum social welfare. Social welfare is maximum when there is maximum of consumer surplus and producers surplus. We have already discussed that consumer surplus is the difference between what the consumer is willing to pay and what he actually pays, and producer surplus is the difference between what the producer gets from the sale of a commodity and what he must get from the sale of a commodity, and where both of these are maximum, that will be the maximum of social welfare. And but in the under monopolistic competition, this is not maximum, because the optimum scale of the plant is not set up, as well as the plant actually set up is not operated at its optimum capacity. Thus, existence of excess capacity under monopolistic competition causes inefficiency in the use of resources and loss of consumer welfare. The second type of inefficiency under monopolistic competition is allocative inefficiency, which refers to the misallocation of resources among products, which also lead to loss of social welfare. Allocative efficiency is achieved if the price of a product is fixed equal to the marginal cost of production. Under monopolistic competition, price is always greater than the marginal cost. Why it is greater than marginal cost? Again, because AR and MR are different, and AR is more than MR, and equilibrium is where MC is equal to MR. So, naturally price will always be greater than the marginal cost, and we have already seen that deadweight loss in consumer surplus due to the price being greater than the marginal cost. This was there in monopoly. We have shown this in the previous lecture through the diagram also. The same thing applies here too, as every firm under monopolistic competition enjoys some monopoly power due to product differentiation. So, price is greater, output is less, so that leads to misallocation of resources. Employment get resources in other industries. So, naturally we can say that there is misallocation of resources or inefficiencies are there under monopolistic competition. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much. Your inputs are always very, very precious for us, and I believe that all the students who watch the lectures on microeconomics are benefited from it. So, dear friends, if you are really benefited, please write to us at info.cec@nic.in. We would be meeting again very soon. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so very much.